Well. Navigating, mitigating toxic workplaces. Well, how do you do that? First, you've got to understand the landscape. What is it? What does it all mean? We all talk about it pretty glibly, right? Oh, yeah, I work at this like totally toxic place, or my boss is so toxic, I want to quit. But we always come up with these explanations and try to explain why or why not we should stay. We justify it. So let's talk about what's going on in the workplace because there are a lot of challenging dynamics out there, and not only potentially toxic situations, but definitely toxic situations. So let's first understand what constitutes a toxic workplace and how to recognize the signs, because that's crucial for how you maintain a healthy and productive work environment, not to mention a healthy and happy heart, right? Because at the end of the day, it is about us, not the toxic boss, right? So let's talk about some of the characteristics, all the impacts, and the indicators of toxic workplaces so that we can equip you with the knowledge that you need to navigate and then mitigate these toxic environments. So we've all heard that toxic workplaces are characterized by a number of things. It's all negative behaviors, attitudes that have detrimental effects on not just you, but many individuals, and then ultimately the whole organization. And we all know what the signs are, right? Hostility, lack of civility, harassment, be it sexual, gender-based, racial, whatever form, totally not cool and offside, and discrimination in general, taking it to that next level where you're not just being harassed for being who you are, but somebody's right? They're needling at you all the time. And in a toxic workplace, what happens? Employees feel unsafe, unsupported, and undervalued. Not cool on any level. So then what happens when individuals start feeling uncomfortable and unvalued and that it's not a safe workplace, that it's toxic? There's a huge ripple effect. These individuals that are directly affected start feeling low morale, low productivity, low job satisfaction. They start taking days off, PTO, because they are genuinely burnt out, feeling stressed out, having mental health issues, anxiety, depression, all that stuff. Meanwhile, what's happening is that those individuals who are directly affected and behaving in this way, their malaise starts to rub off on everybody else. So the whole team starts to tank. And then what do you see? Higher turnover rates, increased absenteeism, and decreased overall performance. How do you recognize the signs of toxicity? Well, like we said, there's a few things. You see not just the harassment and sort of the typical things that you'd expect to see, but aggression and microaggressions. I have some gals, some wonderful friends. They are women of color and they have beautiful hairstyles, ethnic hairstyles that they embrace, and a microaggressive comment that they get often, or thing that happens, they get their coworkers touching their hair and going, "Oh, wow. So is it like hard to wash the dreads? Do they get like dirty?" I mean, come on, please. Anyway, I don't even want to go there. So gals, women of color, people that have interesting hairstyles, just set the boundary and say, "Pound sand, people, keep your hands off my hair," right? Just set that boundary. Anyway, micromanagement is another form. So we just talked about microaggression. Micromanagement is that parrot on your shoulder going, "Did you do it? Did you do it? Did you get it done? Did you get it done yet? Are you done? Is it going to be done? Are you finished? I want you to do it this way. No, that's not good enough. Do it this way." And then they change a period to a comma in some work that you've written. Just really, really petty crap that does absolutely nothing to move the needle. But they have to feel like they are a person in authority, right? So they kind of get in here and they needle in. Other forms of toxic workplaces. Oh, did you hear that about Wendy? Oh, no, right? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Did you hear? Oh my, she did this. Oh, she did that. We don't want that. And then favoritism, which boils over in the form of nepotism. "Oh, yes, my daughter's going to be working for us this summer. She's a highly successful student. She's going to be a terrific intern." Meanwhile, 50 other people have wonderful teenagers who would be highly competent interns, but then never even got a chance, right? Nepotism. All these behaviors combine together to create a toxic culture, and they contribute to a hostile work environment. There's also important environmental indicators. This is just high stress levels, a lack of communication between people, low morale, high turnover. These are all the metrics that you want to be watching for so that you can validate how you feel or what you think is happening. Because we all have these periods of self-doubt, right? We start thinking, is it me? Is it really toxic? Or is it just, I don't know, is it just me? Am I having bad days, bad weeks? Am I in a slump? What is it? You can look for those indicators and know it's not just you. What you also want to be able to do is to be able to bring those toxic behaviors, the harassment and everything else to the authorities within your organization, even externally, if you need to, if it gets to that level, and internally, your HR team is not doing what they need to do to protect you, because you are protected by law. You cannot be discriminated against. You cannot be sexually harassed. And you have to try to get your folks to see that on the inside to support you. And if they're not creating that inclusive and supportive work environment, see ya. Go to Indeed.com or Dice or something else, right? And get out of there. LinkedIn, anything. Okay, so maybe you're there and you're in a difficult position because you live in a rural town, or you really like the flexibility that the job has. You need the money. You can't find anything else, whatever it is. So you got to stick it out. Fair enough. How do you navigate the workplace? What do you do? Well, if you don't have internal support for you from other employees, where there's policies, procedures, and there's generally an effort by the leadership team to foster that culture of respect and inclusivity, then you're going to have to look outside. You may need to go to support groups, and there are numerous groups on Facebook and other social media, or just even tap some of your friends. Sit down, have your favorite beverage of choice, and just dump, let it out. But don't keep regurgitating it, because the more that you relive it and keep repeating and repeating and repeating and repeating it, the more it's going to fester inside you and just raise your levels of mental health to a point that it's not sustainable and you are really going to go down. So be cautious of how many times you repeat the narrative and how much time you spend investing yourself, your heart, your time in something that's happened. If you can't move on from it, you have to ask yourself, why can't you? If it was serious enough, then you have to take the necessary action, be it legal or whatever else, in order to be able to remove yourself from that situation that continues to hold you down. All right, so I'm going to give you some tips here. How do you identify, right? We've talked about that, toxic work environments. Now, we're going to get into tips on how you navigate them. Number one, educate yourself. Learn about what happens in toxic workplaces. Make sure you really dig in and put your lenses on. Be a detective. Be the toxicity detective and look around and say, what's our turnover rate? How many people are tuned out during meetings, don't have their cameras on, or scrolling their phones? How many people are talking back? How many people are disengaged? What's the level of absenteeism? Those are going to give you some really good indicators if or how toxic your workplace is. Here's another tip. Trust your instincts. If something doesn't feel right, it's probably not. Don't doubt yourself. Pay attention to how you feel when you're at work and notice how these negative things that are happening in your place affect your mood or behavior. That's another indicator. As I said, put your detective lens on. Pay very close attention to the behaviors of everybody else. Look for those signs of microaggression, micromanagement, favoritism, and gossip. Those are definitely red flags, and you're going to go, yep, I'm out of here. So you can guide yourself in what you're going to need to do. You also want to consider the overall culture of your workplace. I've worked in places where it's all, bros in Lambos and that kind of thing, right? It wasn't for me. I've worked in places where it is the big C, the big corporate, right? The Fortune 100's been there. I don't fit in. Square peg, round hole. And as much as I tried, just that culture wasn't for me. And when I looked around, the levels of stress, the morale, opposite the levels of stress, right? Complete opposites. I just knew it wasn't for me. So I had to move on. Here's another great tip. Address the issues early. Don't let them fester to the point where they're bubbling up and then getting you and just really eating you from the inside out. That stuff takes a toll on your arteries. It takes a toll on your heart. It just takes a toll on everything. Your relationships at home, your joy, your joie de vivre, right? Everything, the essence of who you are. Don't do it. Nip that stuff in the bud. Here, this tip, we all know. Set boundaries. Boom. Hey, colleagues. Hey, supervisors. Texting me at 11 p.m. on a Friday night. Guess what? Not cool. Not only am I going to ignore your text at 11 p.m. on Friday, but at 9 a.m. on Monday, I'm going to let you know that you violated a boundary. And I have no intention of responding to emails or texts outside of work hours. Make it clear. You say it respectfully. You don't say it with attitude and say, hey, I'm not doing this. Forget you, arf you. You pull it back, but you set your boundary. Remember, the calmer and clearer that you are, the more likely that your message is going to land. If you approach it as I just did, all fired up and people are just going to hear yelling sounds, loud sounds. I'm ignoring them. Whatever you're saying, I'm not processing it, whatever. But if you go in very clearly with a directive that says, I wanted to let you know I did not respond to your text on Friday night because it was way outside of working hours. I am very happy to participate and respond and be highly responsive within the standard 8 to 5 or 8 to 6, whatever your window is, working hours, Mondays to Fridays. Make it clear, keep it calm, it'll land, they'll hear you. All right, self-care, right? We hear that too. And this one, to be honest, people are always telling me, Laura Lynn, more self-care time, but it doesn't really happen. I'm one of the folks, I guess I have very, very high resilience, but it doesn't mean that I don't burn out too. I feel it. I just can't seem to get that level of self-care that I need, but I admire other people who do that. They take their 1 hour bubble bath at night, or they spend the hour before they go to bed just reading fluffy magazines or watching fluffy shows or whatever it is just to chill out. Do whatever you have to do. Talk to friends, hang out, hike, do things. I tend to cuddle with my dog and walk with her, and that works for me. Don't be shy to seek support, whether it be on a professional level with a mental health counseling professional or through your friends and family. Talk to them about what you're experiencing so that they know and they can understand. In that way, they'll be better positioned to help you. Consider your options, right? If it's too much to handle, start applying. Take your PTO, space it out. That's the best thing I can tell you. Even if you take a couple of hours a day so that you reduce some of that morning commute intensity and insanity. I know I drive up and down the New Jersey Turnpike and I want to lose my mind. It is the tailgate state. I don't drive slowly, and people are on me, like touching my bumper, nudging me along at insert rather high miles per hour speed, but it's ridiculous, just the intensity. So if you want to do that, great. Take a couple of hours PTO every day, avoid that commute, space it out. So you're like, okay, now I only have a 6-hour workday. I can do this. I can do that. You can do anything for 6 hours or a few more weeks or a couple of more months until you find the job that you want. And don't be shy. Advocate for change. Again, being calm, clear, and concise, people will hear your words. They will look to you and your leadership for setting the examples. Work with HR. Point out that they lack a particular policy or they should consider X, Y, Z, whatever it is, because you've noticed that other employees are experiencing what you're experiencing. Ha ha ha, right? That's how you do it. You don't have to make it all about you. So it sounds like it's just me and I'm the only one in this big company that's having any problems at all. If you can, Go to a few of your allies internally in the company that you can trust, that aren't going to shoot their mouths off to somebody else and contribute to that toxic culture with gossip and everything else. Oh, did you hear Laurelyn? Oh, she's losing it. Garner some support, and then you can stand together to go to HR and advocate for the changes that you need. All right, let's switch gears a little bit. So that's toxic workplace. What about my favorite? Toxic bosses, right? We've all had them. Oh my goodness. So what do? Document everything. If you've got emails that come from them, texts at midnight or whatever it is, something crazy, screenshot this, that, capture it, create everything, put it in a Google folder, whatever you've got, capture all that stuff, write it in a journal as well so that you can express how you feel when you've been on the receiving end of whatever crap and nonsense that they dealt to you that day. Write it down. Ask your boss for feedback. Ha ha ha. So this is a double-edged sword. Be prepared. Most people that I coach and speak with, they're not ready for feedback. Oh, they can give it, no problem. They can dish it out like nobody's business. Can they receive it? Hell no. But this is a really important step because it does a couple of things. One, it not only invites dialogue with your toxic boss to understand where they are and maybe areas that you can tweak or improve to reduce some of that tension and toxicity. And that can be a very valuable thing. But it also puts your boss effectively on notice that you're putting them back in the driver's seat and they need to make adjustments and work with you because you've asked and you've solicited information to drive change. And that's what leaders need to do. Leaders are there to unblock stuff. And if you're blocked, they need to help you get unblocked. Again, we talked about toxic workplaces, same thing, set boundaries, like, no way, honey, no, I'm not taking your text at midnight. Sorry, ain't happening, right? You need to be very, very clear. Same thing, seek support from friends, from internal allies. But here's another one. Look for solutions. Every boss in the world welcomes the conversation when you present a problem and a potential solution. Even if the solution's kind of like half-baked and it may not work, it may not go over, but at least you put some thought into it so you're not just having a griping session saying blah, 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 blah. This doesn't, I don't like, you. You don't want to do that. Present the problem and say, I have some ideas on maybe how we can address it. I'm not sure if it'll work for your team or our organization, but I wanted to bring it forward because I do think it's a problem worth solving. Now you queued up the context, destined for success. Of course, you need to know your rights. Look up your HR policies, talk to an attorney if you need to. There's a lot on labor law and discrimination. There are organizations that's all they do is support folks who have been discriminated against, harassed, all of that sort of stuff. And always know that you have options. You don't have to stay there forever. You can find a way. Protect your health, your heart health, your mental health. Stay strong, hang in there. So, in conclusion, right? I get it. Toxic bosses suck. I've had a few, let me tell you, oh my goodness. Well, yeah, I can tell you stories that would curl your hair for free, just like insane people. But we'll get into that in the show. Toxic workplaces and toxic bosses, right? They can be really challenging. But now you are armed with information, and that is power, right? Knowledge is power. Now you know how to identify a toxic workplace, and you've got a whole bunch of tips. I think I probably put in 15, 20 in there, how to navigate toxic bosses and toxic workplaces. Use them. Prioritize your mental health and your well-being, and don't ever be shy. Ask for help whenever you need it.